Good morning. On the third Sunday before Lent, the readings are Matthew 5:13 to 20 and 1 Corinthians 2:1 to the end. Where do we go from here? That's the question that is often asked at moments of reflection upon the state of affairs that has presented itself. We have come this far, what's next? In the Sermon on the Mount, which runs through chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus is giving direction as to how the people should live according to God's plan as the kingdom of heaven is breaking in. This is not just another set of rules like the law of Moses. It doesn't mean that that law is abolished. Rather, it is fulfilled in Jesus, who has come to show God's purpose in giving the law. By doing this, he actually re-establishes the intention of the law and shows up the way that the Pharisees and scribes had promoted their own interpretation as unhelpful. The story of Israel, the prophecies, the commands, they were all coming true in Jesus, and the people are called to take notice. Jesus reminds them of their own calling to be salt and light. Salt, as a preservative and a flavouring agent, kept food from going bad in those days. God had called Israel to be like the salt of the earth. But how could this happen if the people were behaving like everybody else? With their factions and political conflicts and militant revolutionary behaviour, where was their distinctiveness? They were just like any other nation. In other words, says Jesus, Israel had lost its taste, its saltiness, and had therefore lost its purpose. In the same way, God had called Israel to be the light of the world, in the words of the prophet Isaiah. But Jerusalem, which was a city on a hill, was no longer shining as a beacon of hope to the world. Instead, the people who were called to be light bearers were stumbling in the dark and no longer keeping to God's law in order to show the world that He was the only one true God and worthy to be worshipped. From now on, with Jesus proclaiming the kingdom of heaven, where were the people going? They had, of course, a choice. They could ignore the warnings and proclamations, and many did. Or they could listen and act. Not by sticking fervently to the law as the Pharisees were demanding, including their own interpretation and added rules, but by accepting Jesus, who in his own person was to embody the intention of the law. He brought it all into reality in himself. The salt and the light, he was to be just that. He was that salt of the earth that God had ordained. He was the light of the world. On the top of a hill, at his crucifixion, he would draw all people to himself and become the beacon of hope that would give new life to the world. His self-giving love was to be the deepest fulfillment of the law and the prophets. So, where do we go from here? Are we intent on following Jesus as he has encouraged us to do? Where and how can we be like salt and light to the world? If we're being realistic about ourselves, we know that we can't do it in our own strength. We're rather doomed to fail and fall at the first hurdle. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done. As Paul writes to the Corinthian church, I came to you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. My speech and my proclamation were not with plausible words of wisdom, but with demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith might rest not on human wisdom, but on the power of God. It is God who does the work, if only we let him. In Paul's words, among the mature we do speak wisdom, though it is not a wisdom of the age or of the rules of this age, who are doomed to perish. So, yes, we have a part to play in the proclamation of the kingdom of heaven, but we do so with humility, allowing God to work in and through us so that His light may shine. Where there is love, faith and hope grow, and we are going in the right direction. Amen.